Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Jamie if you haven't been here before, and hopefully if you have been here before you will appreciate my new setup. I decided to start using my iPhone 7 to record myself instead of my webcam, even though it's slightly harder, but hopefully this works out. Anyway, so today I wanted to tell a few stories from my high school about basically some like paranormal stuff that happened. It's kind of funny because, when you're in high school you hear, oh, the bathroom's haunted or the locker room's haunted, and I kind of brushed things off when I was in high school when I heard that our theater was haunted. So the high school I went to was built in the 70s, and we had renovations throughout the years, and I believe in the early 2000s or the 90s there was a renovation to the theater. And one of the big folklores or legends at my school was that one of the workers who was in the theater fell and died while it was being built. So that was what I heard all throughout high school, and everybody called him Stan and said, oh, Stan, the ghost in the theater. In high school, I did theater. I was a theater kid. I acted in plays. I helped with costumes. I was in there a lot. In fact, one of the things we always used to do was hang out in the green room and hang out in the theater during our off periods. The theater teacher was really awesome. Her name was Miss Fowler, and she'd let us walk around in there and just sort of hang out. It was like a good, safe place to go. So I had never experienced any of like the supposed hauntings until my senior year. So I just always assumed it was just, kids talking. So the first thing that happened was, me and my friend Joe, my boyfriend on off, were hanging out, and we probably weren't supposed to be in the theater during this time, but we would go in there anyway. And essentially how our theater was set up was we had, the theater, the stage, and then sort of to the side of the stage, you go through a door, and then there was a classroom, and that's what we called the green room. So this was during a time Miss Fowler actually had a baby, so she wasn't there. And there was a substitute, and me, On-Off, and Joe decided to go into the theater. We passed through the green room and went into the theater by ourselves. I don't remember exactly how we got in there, but I had the feeling, I feel like the substitute didn't know we were in there. And all the lights were off, so it was like pitch black in the theater, right? Just complete darkness. The only things you could see were like the exit signs, green exit signs making a little light, and they were by two of like the exit doors to get out of the theater into the hallway. So we walk in and we sit near the exit signs kind of by the door, and we're just talking and hanging out. We weren't really doing anything bad. We just decided to chill in there for a little bit, have our off period. Don't really want to deal with any of the kids there, so we're just sitting there talking, and we hear like footsteps coming sort of across the stage, and so we're all quiet. We're like, oh god, I think we're gonna get in trouble. So we're all super quiet, and we hear these footsteps come down the stairs, down like off the stage, and they come all the way down this walkway, and it's pitch black, so we can't see anything, right? And we're like, oh god, we're gonna get in trouble. We should have gone out of here. Like, dang it. Like, I think we're just like kind of whispering to each other. And the footsteps, we hear them approaching, and then right as it, like the feet, I guess, would come into light where the green exit light was, we hear it stop. And we sit in there for silence for a few minutes. We're like, what's going on? Like, what is happening? Who's there? Are we gonna get in trouble? And it becomes apparent that no one's there. We're like, hello? Nothing. And immediately Joe was like, I'm out of here. This is BS. Like, I've seen too many scary movies. I know what's gonna happen. So he's just starts picking up his stuff. He's like, peace out. Me and On-Off, my boyfriend, were like, oh, like so confused. We're like, what's happened? Is that the ghost? Like, we've never seen or felt anything in here. Like, that must be the ghost. And Joe's like, I'm out of here. I can't deal with this. So we eventually left. So that was the first experience. And it was just so crazy because like the footsteps were so loud and like so apparent. So I was just like, who was there? Like, I just was thinking about it for days. Like, what could that have possibly been? Like, I try to explain it away, like maybe it was a person. But I actually forgot to mention we turned on our cell phone flashlights and lifted them up and no one was there. And it was just like super weird because all three of us heard the footsteps. And I mean, it wasn't like we're like, oh, do you hear footsteps? It was like we heard them and all three of us were dead silent because we thought we were going to get in trouble. So that was the first thing. The second thing was also my senior year of high school. On-Off and I were both really involved in the theater. So he did sound, and as I said earlier, I did costumes. So this was during a week before one of our one of our shows. And so the teacher had given us permission to be in there during class, which we had an off period of, so that we could work on stuff and get it finished before the play. So On-Off was like rewiring some stuff by the soundboard, and I was sitting on the stage sewing at the sewing machine, and we were the only two in there. There was nobody else in there, and we had catwalks at our theater. So if you don't know, there's the stage, and then of course there are lights, and one of the things that people do to hang the lights is go up, and there are these walkways called catwalks, and you can adjust the lights or change filters in them to give them different colors. And in high school this was a really big deal to be safe about the catwalks. So they were locked. Only a few people had the keys. Like, no one could just go up into the catwalks, and then they had procedures of if anybody was up there, they would have to, like, yell certain commands, or, like, if they were going to drop something, they'd have to yell something, so that we could all know, you know, okay, something's falling, or, like, somebody's up there. It's just, like, all these safety, you know, precautions, because you don't want anybody to fall off, because they're, like, super, super high up in the theater. So On-Off and I were in there, and, another thing I want to mention about our particular light system was, on each catwalk, you know, there's like a string, not a string, it's like a metal pole, and each light is attached to those poles. So, all the lights are attached, essentially. And, you know, when you move one, it kind of shakes all of them. And that's true for, like, either side of, you know, the catwalk. All the lights are connected. And they're big. They're, like, you know, like, about this big. So On-Off and I are sitting in there, I'm sewing, and then we hear like this clanking coming from the catwalks. It's like clank, 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 clank. It's not very, what's the word? There's no pattern to it. And we're like, what? I yell over to him because he's kind of far. I was like, do you hear that? And he was like, yeah. And we're like, what the heck is that? Oh no, I'll probably go away. So I continue to sew, and this noise is not stopping, and it's like super irritating, and it's super loud. And so like I get up and I walk down the stairs off the stage, and I look up and I see one of the lights is just like shaking violently, and I'm like, what in the world is that? Like, I'm just completely baffled. I'm like, what in the world could that be? I'm like, On-Off, come over here. So he walks over and he looks up at this light, and we see it's just like clanking and banging against the side of the catwalk, and it's just one. And he's like, what in the world? Like, how could that one light be moving? And it's shaking violently. And he's like, how is that one light moving? It would be moving all of them. And also, what's causing it to move? There's, like, no draft in here, and if there was, it wouldn't be moving a single light in the middle of a section of lights. And I'm like, I don't know that is. And we were watching it for a little bit, and On-Off's like, I wonder if that's the ghost stand. And right as he says that, the light stops. And then, like, 5 lights over, like, another light starts shaking. And we're just like, what in the world? That's so crazy. And we're just standing there looking at it in disbelief, like, back and forth. We're being like, okay, could it be the wind? No, well, for one, it wasn't a windy day, you know. For two, like, why would it just be moving one light? And then also, why would one light stop moving and then the other one start? Like, we're just trying to figure out what in the world it was. And it continued the whole time we were there. And then we just, you know, we got up and we had to leave the theater. And so that was just like super wild to us. Like, what happened there? Like, we have no explanation for it, except for Stan, the ghost at my high school, I guess. So that's essentially what happened. That's my paranormal story from high school. Hopefully you liked it. If you can think of anything to explain these weird happenings, go ahead. And if you have any interesting paranormal stories, I would like to hear them in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and have a wonderful day.